Yo, sometimes life calls for a change. Not fake, just different. It'll show you a different way. And right now, I'm on to my different way. I can promise you this is the same Spann, but the reporting is over. I'd like to welcome you to the Mr. Spann official podcast. Let's go. Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Mr. Spann official podcast. I'm your host, Mr. Spann. This is episode number 40 of The Report, man. Number 40. Old habits die hard, man. It's not The Report anymore. It's just Mr. Spann official. But yeah, man, we are on episode number 40 here, man. Got here relatively quickly. Nigga, this is about the third time I'm going to talk to y'all this week, nigga. So, shout out to that. You know what I'm saying? Shout out to that. Very seldom has your man Spann ever hit the mic 3 times in a week. But, yo, it happened this week, man. So, good things, man. Good things. Well, not necessarily, right? Not necessarily, because some of the things we talk about have been kind of fucked up. So, yeah, we got that going on. But of course, before we get into the show, I do have to remind you guys how to get in touch with us over here at the Mr. Spann official podcast and let your voice be heard. You can go ahead and hit us up at our hotline at area code 313-288-0485. That's area code 313-288-0485. Leave us those voicemail messages. Of course, those messages will get played here live on the show and responded to in kind. And if you're watching us here live on YouTube, Facebook, and or Twitter, you can chop it up with your man Spann while we're doing the show. So that's area code 313-288-0485. Leave us an email at feedback@thespannreport.com. That's feedback@thespannreport.com. For those of you who leave those emails, of course, we will read those emails and we will reply to those emails here live on the show, right? Also, follow me on Threads and Instagram. My name on both of those platforms is Mr._Spann. So go ahead, follow me there, chop it up with your man Spann throughout the week. Also, leave us a 5-star review on iTunes and Spotify. Those 5-star reviews are the ones that get right here live on the show. We really appreciate everybody who goes about the business of doing that. Doesn't cost you a dime, just a couple minutes to get time to let everybody know why you're rocking with us over here at the Mr. Spann official podcast and the Spann Report podcast network in its entirety, right? Also, if you're watching this on YouTube, man, leave us a thumbs up, man. Leave us a thumbs up. Also, not only are you to leave us a thumbs up, but you should also be commenting over there too, right? Because we'll read some of those comments here on the show, right? As a matter of fact, I got a comment that we're going to read here later during our listen to feedback portion of the show. So yeah, man, if you're consuming the show via YouTube, man, let us know what you're thinking about what it is that we saying here on this mic. Leave us a thumbs up and also leave us a comment, man. Let us know what you're thinking about what we're talking about here over on Mr. Spann Official. Also, go to our website. Go to www.thespannreport.com. You can go there, watch replays of the show. You can vote in polls over there when we decide to put those polls over there because we do that all the time on Spotify. So if you listen to us on Spotify, go ahead, leave us those comments there on Spotify and vote in those polls. But you can also go to our store and copy yourself some merch, man. So get yourself a nice fly tee. You know what I'm saying? Like your man Spann rocking right now. Get yourself a hoodie, get yourself a coffee mug, get yourself a mouse pad. We got a bunch of trinkets, over there at our Spann Report store. And so we appreciate everybody who supports in that way. It does cost you a little bit, but yo, man, it helps us keep this thing going because this shit ain't free, man. This shit is not free, okay? So yeah, man, we appreciate everybody who supports us in that way, man. Real talk. But yo, man. It's been about 3-4 days since the last time I talked to y'all, and I've had a little bit of an odyssey, so to speak. Now, I remember, I think a little while ago, I told y'all about there was this thing that me and my father-in-law decided to do, man, because we were both kind of looking for the Crown Royal Blackberry, right? We were looking for the Crown Royal Blackberry, and I was like, yo, man, should I go over to Canada and get the Crown Royal Blackberry? Because, for those of you who aren't necessarily familiar, Detroit is like right across the river, the Detroit River. You can get the Windsor, Canada, and, they got the duty-free shops over there, and then they got like these state-owned stores. I'm forgetting the name of the stores right now, but I'm like, Crown Royal it's a Canadian brand, it's a Canadian product. So maybe if we just drove over to Canada, we may be able to get it, get us some of that shit, right? Wrong. Wrong. They ain't had that shit, man. Nobody had a Crown Royal, right? And I was getting a little perturbed seeing motherfuckers from all across the country. You know what I'm saying? My friends, I was a little jealous. You know what I'm saying? I was a little jealous of y'all to have the Crown Royal before we got it here right across the goddamn border. I ain't gonna lie, man. I was a little upset. But I've been seeing the Crown Royal Blackberry in the wild, man. And I'll be damned, man.
Niggas coming.
Those motherfucking stores had to know that the niggas was coming, right? So it just so happened I saw one while I was at work, right? I saw one in the liquor store. I stopped just to get like some chips and a soda or something so I could like, just real quick lunch. And I'm like, damn, I can't get it right now. I'm at work. But just so happens, they had they had it for like $29.99 in that store. I'm like, damn, and I can't cop right now. I can't cop. But I'm like, well, fuck it then. I might come back this way when I get off. And then by the time I got off of work, I was like, nah, I don't even feel like driving back over that way. That's stupid. So I'm like, well, I'm gonna stop at the liquor store on my way home and probably get like a 6-pack or something like that on my way, home from work or whatever. So, that's going to be what it is. But the liquor store that I stopped at, they just so happen to have the Crown Royal Blackberry. Now, here's the rub, though, right? They had the Crown Royal Blackberry, but when I looked, I had to squint at the motherfucking price because this nigga had to been tripping. This motherfucker had the Crown Royal Blackberry priced at $59.99. Nigga! He had to been smoking rocks, right? I'm like, so... I see the price. And I asked him, I'm like, yo, man, because I'm thinking that's got to be a misprint. That's got to be a motherfucking misprint. I'm like, yo, man, how much is the Crown Royal Blackberry? And he's like, oh, yeah, you said it's $59.99. And I shook my head. I'm just like, God damn. I did just like this, man, like this motherfucker tripping for real. And he took offense to the fact that your man Spann was shaking his head. Like, what are you shaking your head for? I had to buy that second hand. I couldn't get that from my distributor. And like, listen here, merchant, you know what I'm saying? That sounds like a you problem, fam. Now, here's the rub, right? Here's the thing. I get to a certain degree, a lot of these, liquor stores or whatever, most of their customers probably aren't going to venture out and go to see if they can find the liquor that they're looking for at a cheaper rate. They just go to the neighborhood store and that's good enough for them, right? I'm not that kind of guy. I got access to, well, not necessarily access, but I can get around. I got a car. I can, I don't have to settle for, you trying to charge me $59.99 for this shit that I know is cheaper elsewhere. But then on top of that, he tried to act as though I couldn't find it cheaper elsewhere. I'm like, bro, I get my Crown mostly from CVS right up the street, and it's normally $7, $8, maybe even $10, depending on the flavor, cheaper than what you motherfuckers are charging in here, which is why I hardly ever go to the liquor store now to go buy my liquor. I get that shit at CVS because they are normally cheaper than what a lot of these liquor stores are trying to charge for the shit, right? So he said, you said you found it for $30 in Detroit. If you found it for $30 in Detroit, you go buy it for $30 in Detroit, and then I'll buy it from you. And I'm like, yeah, man, you taking way too much offense to the fact that I'm not buying this shit from you at $59.99. Like, hey, bro, if you could find somebody that's going to buy that shit, more power to you, but it just won't be me, right? So today, man, I'm just, out running some errands, man. And I rolled up into this gas station that also happens to sell liquor and shit, which I think is odd considering, they don't want you to drink and drive, but that's crazy. But at the gas station, they had the Crown Royal Blackberry, and they had the Crown Royal Blackberry for the price of $32. $32, man. Wait a minute, I just thought about it. That can give me like a copyright or some shit, We're going to talk about that copyright shit in a minute too. But yeah, man, they had it for $32, man. So I'm like, yo, man, that's what's up. That's what's up. I'll take it. $32, I can cop that, right? So what I decided I was going to do before I actually tasted it, I'm going to taste it right here on the show, right? So I got my I got my glass ready. You know what I'm saying? I got my glass ready. I hadn't even poured it out because I know like sometimes folks be wanting sometimes folks like they want to see what the bag look like. So here's the bag, right? Here's the bag right here. It's a little purple, a little real purple or whatever with some, I guess some blackberry accents and shit, you know. And yeah, so we gonna see. I took the wrapping and shit off, but yeah, man. So here we go, and we gonna see if this shit was worth the hype. You know what I'm saying? Because you know it reminded me a little bit of the hype around the peach. You know what I'm saying? When the peach came out, motherfuckers was doing all kind of crazy shit with the peach, and you know I had to go and go to great lengths to go get it at a decent price. So once the hype dies down, I'm sure that prices will start stabilizing. But let's see what this Crown Royal Blackberry is on. Let's see what they talking about here. Okay. All right. Now, see, my aunt told me, because she had it in Chicago, she told me it had like a little grape flavor to it. And I get that. I'm not necessarily getting grape. But I ain't going to lie to you. This ain't my motherfucking favorite Crown Royal. I mean, it's serviceable. You know, it'll do its thing. I ain't gonna lie, this shit smell like medicine. Smell like medicine. But yeah, I mean, I guess I'll have it in the rotation. But yeah, honestly, now that I've had it, not necessarily a must have. And I gotta say, I'm a bit shocked at that, man. Yeah, I am a bit shocked. Especially considering a lot of the hype around it, you know, and I'm a Crown Royal drinker. Like I drink a lot of the different Crown Royals. There's one that I don't even think they sell anymore that I used to kind of like, but the only thing about it, it was really sweet. And that was the Crown Royal Maple. I haven't seen the Crown Royal Maple in forever, but that shit tasted like alligator syrup. I ain't gonna lie to you. So you had to take that shit in moderation. But yeah, man. Maybe this will be one of those crowns that I feel like is better, like, you know, consumed mixed with something. Because normally I drink my Crown straight on the rocks. But nah, man, this ain't a must have. This is not a must have for your boy. And so you heard it here first. You know what I'm saying? You heard it here first. I mean, it's okay. It's just okay. And that's okay. You know, that's just one man's opinion. I'm sure there's gonna be somebody who's like, yo, the Crown Royal, you know, Blackberry is they shit. Sort of like how the Crown Royal Peach is my shit, right? And the Crown Royal Salted Caramel, you know? That was another thing too, right? So I know some people be like, you know, what's up with the bag? They like the bags and shit. I got a bunch of bags downstairs. But like say for instance, if you got like the Crown Royal Peach back in the early days, they actually had a little peach, you know, stitched into the bag or whatever. Or if you got the Crown Royal Salted Caramel, it would have like a snowflake, you know, stitched into the bag or whatever. They ain't doing nothing special with this. But yeah. So, yeah. Let me try one more time. Yeah. It's serviceable. It's a serviceable whiskey. So, yeah. It ain't worth no goddamn $59.99. That's for goddamn show, nigga. That's what. Nigga! So yeah, man, we got that going on. So I finally got my hand on the Crown Royal Blackberry. I did a live review of it right here on the show. I could taste the blackberry. It's got it smells a lot like medicine. I'm not gonna lie to you. If you like a grape flavored sort of thing, I can see this sort of being like in your rotation. I'm not really the biggest fan of like grapey sort, and I it's not grape, but it's in it's kind of leaning in that way. And I see what my aunt was talking about. It's kind of leaning in that way. So yeah, you got that going on, man. The Crown Royal Blackberry has been conquered, it's been had, and it's not worth a lot of the hype that I've been seeing online as of late. So that kind of sucks because I was excited about it, but you know, it'll go in the cabinet. Same as the rest of the stuff, right? So you got that going on. I had a couple random thoughts before we get into before we get into some of our listener feedback, because I did get some listener feedback this week. But one of the things I was thinking about, because you know, oftentimes when I'm at work, you know, you have to ring a doorbell or something like that, knock on the door, let people know you're there, and I noticed that with the Ring doorbells, people don't answer their damn Ring doorbells. I know, like, I've had a Ring doorbell before, and I know that, like, if your internet connection isn't the greatest, like, there's a hellified delay by the time someone rings that doorbell, by the time it gets to your phone. So I get that sometimes folks just don't get to their phone fast enough for them to actually answer the ring or whatever else. And this is outside of some of the Ring doorbells having like a really tiny microphone. I'm sorry, a tiny speaker, and it's hard to hear anything that people are saying on those damn things. But I've noticed lately with the Ring doorbells, it'll ask you to say, well, the person that you're trying to reach isn't here. If you'd like to leave them a message, you could do so right now. And they'd be like, so are niggas leaving voicemails at the doors? Like, are y'all going... Like, are y'all ringing doorbells and leaving voicemails at the doorbells? Like, is that a thing? Because, like, I'm of the age now where I kind of feel like even voicemail is pretty much becoming one of those things where, especially like in interpersonal relationships, maybe not so much about business, but like in interpersonal relationships, where like, nigga, you saw I called you. I ain't gotta leave you no voicemail. You saw I called you. You seen you missed a call from me. Call me back when you get a chance, right? Especially if it's not something serious. The only time I'm leaving a voicemail if it's something serious. So I got a question for y'all. Are any of y'all going up to the Ring doorbell and your people ain't there, and then you leave them a message that you was there? Like, cause I got the feeling they're like, yo, they can see that you was there if they just look at they video feed and like, oh shit, my cousin Shannon came over here. You know what I'm saying? Let me see what that nigga. First of all, Shannon ain't supposed to just be popping up anyway, right? So it's one of those things. But yeah, I just wondered that, like, who are the people leaving the voicemails at the doorbells at your house, right? Now I got a Nest doorbell on my house. And I used to have a Ring doorbell. It was cool, but like I didn't have it wired. It was like the battery operated one, so it was always going off. I always had to charge the battery like every 25 days or some shit like that. And like, again, like I said, if the internet wasn't the greatest, like you get a hellified delay by the time that person ring that doorbell by the time it got to your phone, right? But like with my with my Nest, it's hardwired. I got a constant connection to it. I can constantly monitor it or whatever. But also, my Nest doorbell remembers faces and shit, right? So if my mother-in-law or something like that comes by the house or something, and like before she even rings the door, it'd be like, your mom is near the front door. And if she rings the doorbell, it'd be like, mom is at the front door, right? That's how the Ring like announces it to all of us in the house, right? So I don't think we even have an option on the Nest doorbells to leave a message, because it tells you like, yo, such and such was at the door, right? So yeah, I just one of those things I was just kind of wondering about, how many of y'all are actually leaving voicemails at the doorbells when you go to somebody's house, and if it's something that you only do when like you are there on a business call, right? Because I feel like if it's somebody that you ain't necessarily leaving them damn message. Like, nigga, you seen I was here. So you got that going on. That was one of the things I was thinking about. Another thing I was kind of thinking about, man, I need y'all to like wrap your arms around a lot of the Bears fans this week, man, because what ended up happening was Justin Fields ended up getting traded from the Chicago Bears for $1 and some jawbreakers, man. Just real talk.
Niggas.
The Bears gave that man up for absolutely motherfucking nothing, man. The Bears traded Justin Fields for a goddamn 6th-round pick. Maybe it goes up to a 4th-round pick. And he was their franchise quarterback. And I shout out to my man Pledge, man. I know my man Pledge, he bear down to the wheels to the wheels fall off, man. He's the most ride or die Bears fan I know. And he been on the campaign for the Bears to get this boy some help. Get this boy some help. And then it looked like they was finally going to get him some help. And as soon as they got him some help, they shipped his ass right on the fuck up out of there and got him into Pittsburgh, man. So, yo, man, if you got a Bears fan in your life, make sure that you reach out to him, that you tell him you love him, that everything is going to be okay, that there's only a game, and that you're thinking about him, and they in your prayers and shit. You know what I'm saying? Real talk, man, because they going through it. They are going through it right now. I'm sorry for my Bears fans, right? Now, as a Lions fan, personally, I'm just glad we got that nigga about the division. I ain't even that mad. But, I'm just saying. Pray for your Bears fan, man. Pray for you. Because they got rid of that nigga for nothing. They got absolutely nothing for Justin Fields, man. Real talk. But he went to Ohio State too, because there's that other thing. I don't really fuck with the fuck eyes, so there's that too. Another thing. So on episode 38, I believe that was the episode I did with me and my sister Cook, and we were talking about Trump supporters and stuff, right? Or black Trump supporters, and whether or not we should, invest any time in trying to change the black Trump supporters' minds as to whether or not it's a good idea for them to support Donald Trump, yada, 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 right? And part of how we jumped that discussion off was I brought up some audio and some video from the Native Land Pod from YouTube, right? And I'll be damned if, and I talked about this the last episode, man, that YouTube actually blocked access to my video for episode 38. You couldn't actually see episode 38 probably until just yesterday, man.
I'll be a monkey's bare-assed uncle.
Because iHeartMedia actually had a copyright claim in on that video where they just straight up blocked the entire video. Now, here's the rub. The video, the portion of the video that I used of their stuff was only about 4 minutes, but we were on the air for like 2 hours, bruh. They stopped my whole joint of 2 hours over 4 fucking minutes, and I was hot about it. And I got on the mic and I talked about that shit. And then when I appealed that shit, I elevated my appeal to not talking about it after 30 days. No, give these niggas 7 days to respond. And guess what? We won our goddamn appeal.
Damn!
Yeah, we won our appeal, and partially I believe it was just something like this, right? iHeartMedia is a conglomerate. I'm a small motherfucker doing this shit out of a separate bedroom in my house, right? I'm small potatoes. It wasn't worth the goddamn fight, right? Like, yeah, all right, let's leave this little nigga alone. And I think that's ultimately what it boiled down to. And also, you got you got this thing where like a lot of the copyright stuff is done via software. So like if you got anything that has anything I guess associated with iHeartMedia, they can like they got software that listens for their stuff, and if they hear their stuff anywhere, this is what it automatically triggers. And I think, of course, I mean, it's efficient for them, but it's also very lazy, and it's also it doesn't lend for nuance. It doesn't lend for fair use, because again, what we did with that audio is what we used that discussion to jump off our own discussion as to whether or not it would be a waste of time to talk to Trump supporters or talk to black Trump supporters and convince them that what they're doing is problematic for the motherfucking community. And so, yeah, I'm happy that you guys can now access episode 38 and watch that if you choose to. But like, yo, man, like at this point, who cares? You know what I'm saying? Like at a certain point, like, these videos tend to have like a time, a time frame where, people are, it's no longer relevant because I'm doing current events. So when it's no longer relevant, it's not that wasn't one of those things where it's like, yo, this is going to be evergreen and we're going to always be talking about this. No, we're not going to always be talking about this. It's not going to always be on the top of mind for folks. So when they do sort of heavy-handed shit like that for small creators like myself, yo, man, like that's devastating in a large degree, because like, yo, whatever reach I was trying to get, which isn't my shit doesn't reach all that far out. So whatever small reach that I am trying to get, you shutting that shit down too, just on the fact that like, yo, we used 4 minutes of y'all video to talk about some shit, and we were on our own show for over 2 hours. And so yeah, man, I think YouTube definitely does have to there has to be some sort of happy medium when it comes to this fair use stuff, where you don't have to jump through all these hoops, and then those who are these mega conglomerates can shut your shit down for 30 days, 7 days, or however long it takes for the appeal to go through its whole thing. Like, nah, man, like, if you got an issue with it, hey, state what the issue is. Don't let it be some automated thing where it just shuts down somebody else's creativity. Although we were using some of their material, we didn't use their entire material, and it was just a jumping off point. That's what the fair use shit is about. Like, we actually had a whole other conversation, jumped off from that conversation. So yeah, man, we won that. It was a fight that shouldn't have had it shouldn't have been a fight to begin with. So you got that going on. Yeah, those are all my random thoughts. So we're going to get into our listener feedback here. And let me go back here. Let's do this here. Let's go back to episodes. And so let's see, what was the last time I was on the mic? Let's see, choose your words and your fights carefully. Let's see. We did that on the 9th. Did we do this here? Did I do this already? Okay. So yeah, we did not do this. Okay. So on episode 38, we had a poll on Spotify. And on the poll on Spotify, we asked the listeners what they thought about that. As a matter of fact, as we talk about our fight with iHeartMedia, the poll was, should black people seek to change the minds of black Trump supporters? And there were 3 options. It said, yes, we should educate them. Nah, can't save everybody. And then you got people that's like, man, I don't know. And the people have spoken, and 100%, I said 100% of y'all had to say this. Nah, man, you can't save everybody, man. Yeah, man. Y'all said you can't save everybody. 100% of the people who were listening to me like, yo, don't waste your time, bro. Don't even waste your time talking to these Trump supporters. You can't save everybody. Everybody can't go. So, yeah, that was the poll results from episode 38, right? But we also have, let me see. We also had our Q&A, and it was like, what did you think of Joe Biden's State of the Union speech? And actually, we read this on episode 39, and this is from Taku Fan when he was talking about Cook's audio, when he said that the audio was kind of bad from Cook's audio. Like I said, if you were able to listen to episode 38, if you go to about the 18-minute mark, I believe is where a lot of those audio issues kind of cleared up, because I know when I listened back to it on the audio version, you didn't get that echo as much anymore. For those of you who tried to watch it on YouTube, like I'm still going back and forth with the people where the software that I'm streaming this with, trying to figure out what exactly is going on with that, where sometimes even with the audio that I play from the videos and stuff, I'm noticing an echo in that too. So I'm trying to get them to kind of rectify and remedy that situation. But I appreciate that feedback, and I hope to hear from you again soon. Now another our episode 39, which is a little bit extra, and this was from 4 days ago. We just talked. And the Q&A on this one was, should Wendy Williams' ex-husband be collecting alimony, right? And so we was calling Weak Sauce Kevin Hunter. You know what I'm saying? Because this man is going to the courts talking about, I haven't gotten any alimony payments in about 2 years. And we all now know that Wendy Williams is dealing with a mental health issue, and that she's really no longer in charge of her finances. And so the question was, should Wendy Williams' ex-husband still be collecting alimony? And Soul Power right in, he said, nah. Or they said, nah. And that's exactly what the fuck I said. I said, nah. Because real talk, man, like, you got to be a low down motherfucker to not only cheat on your wife, but have a baby on your wife, and then actually have your fucking hand out after the marriage was over with. You got to be a low down motherfucker after that, man. You don't have any fucking shame. And so that was one of the answers from our question and answer. Now we also had a poll on episode 39, and it was, should D1 athletes stop committing to Florida schools? And this was in response to the state of Florida eliminating diversity, equity, and inclusion offices in all the schools in the state, or some of the state-run schools, so like Florida State schools like that. And again, these polls ain't really leaving a lot to the motherfucking imagination, man, because like you niggas are adamant about this shit. 100% of y'all said, hell yeah, they should stop going to these goddamn Florida schools, man. And so, yeah, that's the truth. I agree with y'all. I think the only part about it is, when you're listening, like, when you're leaving this up to like young people, like, these are guys and kids, girls, 17, 18, 19, 20 years old a lot of times, and they're making their college decisions, and they're athletes, and they're, these schools are trying, they're trying to make their schools attractive. But, I don't want this to become a thing where people are pressuring these kids to fight the good fight, so to speak, when ultimately these kids are the ones who have to live with the decision. We just like are kind of vicariously living through them. And so although I agree that, like, yeah, I wouldn't necessarily want these kids going to these schools, especially considering where these schools don't value diversity, equity, and inclusion, and they don't value your history. They don't value like the trials and tribulations that you had to work through in order to get to in this position, for them to come, to want you to even come play for them, right? They want your body for for you to exert energy for them and make money off of you, but they can't be bothered with educating you, and they can't be bothered with, they can't be bothered with worrying about everything that comes with you and educating those around you about everything that comes with you. And so, yeah, man, I am in agreement with the poll. It's just that the only caveat that I would give to that is like, I just don't want the children to feel as though they have to carry the burden of that on their shoulders. So we got that going on, man. But those were, that's the listener feedback from Spotify. Now, we did have a comment on one of our videos here. Let me see if I can pull this comment up. And hold on a second here. Let's see. Can I do this here? Let me view it on the YouTube. Gave us the $20 or whatever. Okay. So yeah, we got one comment here, and we get this comment. This comes from Reggie. Reggie writes in and says, Spann, that story about the worst whooping you ever got was hilarious. I can't believe you fell for that tooth fairy line, man. Listen. As a 43-year-old motherfucker, I can't believe I fell for that shit either. But, like I said, I was 9 or something like that. One track mind, M&M's, that's all I cared about. He said, like you said, though, you deserve that ass whooping. Just switching gears a little bit, though. I noticed that you've been leaning in heavily on the idea that of the Black Republican grifter and how they bring harm to the community. And I agree with you that Candace Owens just might be in it for the money, considering what her rhetoric used to be at one time. My question for you, though, is why do you often throw people like Brandon Tatum and the Hodge twins in with her, though? What makes them grifty? I haven't followed any of them long enough to know, but from what I've seen of them, they seem to come across as genuine believers in what they're preaching to their audiences. Do you have any proof that they don't truly believe in what they're saying? Okay, so yeah, man. Here's the thing when it comes to like people like Brandon Tatum, people like the Hodge twins and stuff. Like I remember I used to watch the Hodge twins, like some years ago, man. The Hodge twins back then. They were just like some real sophomoric motherfuckers, you know what I'm saying? Like they would say some real, like it was some sophomoric, funny shit. You know what I'm saying? I used to think they were funny. And it surprised me when I saw that they had taken the hard right turn to supporting Donald Trump and things like that. Like it really did. I was kind of taken aback by the shit, and I haven't watched any of this stuff ever since, right? So with them, I feel as though it's one of these things like this, right? When you know that like one of the easiest ways for Black creators to, especially on YouTube, man, like these aren't the only people who do it, but like, they're the more prominent ones like that. Like I said, the Hodge twins and Brandon Tatum and such. But like you notice when like the Hodge twins like have made the whole MAGA thing their entire fucking like brand to some degree. Like, yo, we are. And they going out to these conservative fucking events, and they're talking at these conservative events. They used to be two YouTube niggas that was just goofy on YouTube, and now they like going to all these conservative events. They getting paid a hell of a lot more money now than they were getting paid before. And so that to me is what made it grifty, right? Now, in the case of a Brandon Tatum was one of those people who, he came into prominence, so to speak, in around 2016. And one of the things that I thought was interesting about Brandon Tatum was that one of the very first videos that he put up, it didn't go viral at the time because he got viral for talking about feeling unsafe at a Trump rally being a Black man, right? But also, he had put out a video years ago, and I had the video and I posted it on like Twitter some time ago. But in the video, he was talking about how the video was why Black men date white women, right? And in that particular video, he was talking about it being about culture, right? He has since tried to update his views on that and tried to direct, what he's trying to do, he's doing the Eminem shit where like, yo, I know y'all going to attack me on this, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to say what I meant on this so it kind of blunts whatever attack it is that y'all are throwing at me. That's what he's doing. But he's still leaning into the whole idea of, the reason why Black men date white women is about culture. And he was talking about how he was a conservative Black man. He would go to these conservative events and, when he's talking about culture, you know, the vast majority of the people who are believing in the things that he believes in, you know, as far as romantic interests, were white women, right? And I know black conservative people, right? I know some black conservatives, and they don't necessarily buy into the whole idea of black people being they don't buy into the pathology of blackness, right? They got some things that is mostly about, I don't want us to depend upon the government. I don't want us paying all these taxes, you know, especially because, you know, there's a lot of black people who feel like, yo, we should probably get that as reparations. Well, we shouldn't be paying taxes. Ask Terrence Howard, right? So you got that going on. But he really tried to weave his love of white women into it just being about his conservative values. And it's just like, nah, bro, if you like white women, just say that. And so the other part about it, and it's not about just his love of white women, because, you know, he really tried to wrap that into his conservatism, but it's about the money too. He also went to go work with Candace Owens. They chose him to be the urban outreach person over at Turning Point USA. Like, why would you go to a police officer, right? He used to work for the Tucson, Arizona Police Department for 6 years. Why would you go to a police officer who has negative views of the black community, and that is your guy that you choose as your urban outreach person? That just kind of goes to show you how disassociated and how out of touch a lot of these Republican groups are, when they don't even know that, like, a lot of black folks don't really fuck, you know, a lot of them don't fuck with police, but also they don't fuck with police who have a negative opinion of black folks. And very often, Brandon Tatum gets on his platform speaking ill and negatively of black people and black culture, and using that to elevate himself within white spaces. And so with that comes a financial benefit. Again, he has over, I want to say damn near 2, maybe even 3 million like subscribers on his YouTube. He's been I want to say he's a New York Times best-selling author. He's been invited to the White House. He speaks with Candace Owens. He goes to all these. So when you, like, a lot of this is about the money that, you know, not only just the money, but the reverence that you get from being one of the few black voices in this space, because they need you niggas. They need them niggas over there. They really do, because people like Candace Owens, the Hodge twins, and Brandon Tatum, they give cover to white supremacist talking points. If you can find a nigga who is willing to espouse these views for you, then anytime somebody else comes at you, especially a person of color comes at you, and they're telling you like, yo, man, what you're saying is racist, but like, you could just point, oh, well, Candace Owens agrees with me. Oh, that guy over there, that black guy over there, Brandon Tatum, he believes, he doesn't find this racist. So you're racist for calling me racist. These are the people who are giving them racial cover, and that's all that they're doing, and they get paid to do so. So in that sense, that's why I think that the Hodge twins, and that's why I think that people like Brandon Tatum are grifters, because not only are they getting paid for a lot of this bullshit, I also don't necessarily believe that they believe all of this shit. I genuinely don't believe that they believe this stuff. I think that they believe that this is what's going to get them paid. And if it's going to get them paid, I will say whatever the fuck in order to get to this money. Right? My people be damned. So that's why I lean in on those people in that sense. Right? So you got that going on. Now, I appreciate you, Reggie, for writing in, but it kind of leads me into this one particular dude, and his name is Wesley Hunt. He's a congressman from Texas. I believe it's the 38th congressional district in Texas, and he's a black Republican, right? And this is part of the reason why I'm not necessarily a fan of the black Republican, because oftentimes they speak in opposition to what the position of the community really is, the black community. And so I'm going to play a little bit of Wesley Hunt actually being pissed at Democrats, because Democrats are trying to fight some of the voter ID laws that are popping up all over the country, right? So let me pull this video up so you guys can watch right along with me here.
Representative Wesley Hunt.
Let me do this here. Just a second, folks, while I pull the video up so y'all can see this and we can all watch as a family. Hopefully we don't get any goddamn copyrights for sharing this, but we get this from Forbes, and this is what they got to say. So let's do this here.
He serves as U.S. Representative for Texas 38th Congressional District. He was first elected in 2023 and serves on the House Judiciary Committee, as well as the House Subcommittee on the Constitution and Limited Government.
My man got a big-ass head. I ain't gonna lie, though. He got a big-ass head.
He received his Bachelor of Science from the United States Military Academy at West Point. After serving 8 years in the United States Army, he attended Cornell University, where he obtained a Master's of Business Administration and Public Administration and Industrial Labor Relations. You're a busy guy. We're honored to have you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Congressman Hunt, proceed.
Thank you, Chairman Durbin and Ranking Member Graham, for having me here today to speak about voting rights in America, the country that I love dearly. More importantly, I'm here to talk about the left's soft bigotry of low expectations. Because
that's a talking point from Rush Limbaugh. I remember that. That is a talking point from Rush Limbaugh. He ain't dropping this conservative grift ain't falling too far from the fucking tree.
The Democrat Party, not the Republican Party, that thinks so little of black America as a people of color, that they make the case that being black in America means we can't obtain a government ID to vote. And that's not only a ridiculous assertion, it's demeaning and it's insulting. When it comes down to it, many of my colleagues on the left like to pretend that we're still living in the 1950s. Well, we're not. I got some good news for you. It's 2024, and I know what year it is because I've been black for just over 40 years. And I'm also the son of a retired lieutenant colonel who grew up in a segregated South. You see, my parents grew up in a Jim Crow South in the 50s and 60s in New Orleans, Louisiana. Their next generation, my parents had 3 kids. My sister, brother, and I all went to West Point, all 3 of us. We all served our country in combat. And I sit before you today as a sitting United States congressman in a district in a suburb of Houston, Texas, that's a white majority district, that President Trump would have won by 25 points, and I won by almost 30 points.
Yeah, so keep that in mind. He's the representative for a mostly white congressional district. I'm glad that he admitted that himself. A mostly white congressional district.
And that doesn't happen unless we've made some incredible progress in this great nation. Now, my colleagues on the left like to say that common sense voting laws, including requiring a government-issued ID, are racist, discriminatory, and burdensome. Do you know what my father had back in the 40s and 50s before it was even cool? A government-issued ID. And continuing in his footsteps, I, too, have multiple government-issued IDs. And while that might be shocking to many people in this country, people may ask, how's that happen? It's very simple. It's personal responsibility for all Americans in this country, regardless of what you look like. Sitting with me today is my global entry card, my military ID card, my Texas driver's license, my Texas license to carry, because that's how we roll in Texas, my congressional card, and of course, the good old-fashioned American passport.
Okay, let me ask you something, bro. You said you got a global entry card and you got a passport along with, you know, your congressional card and all this other stuff, right? How much does a passport cost? How much does a global entry card cost? And why are those particular IDs acceptable for someone to be able to like get their, you know, their right to use those as IDs to vote? But for someone in Texas, say for instance, you were a college student in Texas and you wanted to exercise your right to vote and you wanted to register and vote in Texas or whatever else, but you're just a college student. You don't have Texas state ID, right? But you live in Texas for a good portion of the year. So you want to be able to vote in the space in which you live. And you go to school at Texas. You go to a Texas-run university. And that is a state-run university. That state-run university gives you an identification that you go to that institution. And yet you can't use that motherfucking state ID from the school, from the college in Texas that you attend to register to vote and to use that as legitimate identification that you also do live and are eligible to vote in Texas. Make that make sense.
Oh, yeah. There is powerful niggardry at work here.
Make that make sense, man. those are some of the roadblocks that people are facing when they go to try to vote in Texas. It isn't just, it's personal responsibility. Hey, man, again, like what a passport costs, about $115, right? I don't even know how much the global entry card costs. Like, I haven't been doing any international traveling in shit. I was a teenager the last time I did some international travel. So it's been a long time. I'm not versed. But then the other part about it is this. In Texas, they have been closing polling places in Texas. I believe there was a story of, there was this one dude, he was at Texas State University, the other TSU, the other HBCU that goes by TSU. He waited in line to vote for 6 hours to exercise his right to vote in Texas, right? Why should anybody have to wait 6 hours to vote anywhere in the United States of America, right? Where's the soft bigotry of low expectations when it comes to that? There are also older folks who live in rural areas where the Secretary of State office isn't necessarily as accessible as they should be. And some of those folks have, the only identification that they might have is a vital record that may be like a birth certificate, if they can get access to their birth certificate at all. And yet those folks should be eligible to vote. Yet and still, that is a barrier that is put in front of them to keep them from being able to reasonably be able to access the ballot. So it's not just people can't get access to ID, but it's how you try to put put hurdles in front of them to keep them from doing this. Voting should be very easy in America, right? We talk about being one of the oldest democracies on the planet. Voting should be very motherfucking easy. One of the ways that you fix this is by the time someone turns 18, they are eligible to vote. They are automatically registered to vote. But from the time that they turn 18, on their 18th birthday, they are automatically registered to vote. No matter what, they are registered to vote. They are 18 years old. Right? The other way you kind of deplete, alleviate these issues is that you make voting a national holiday. Everybody should have the right to vote, right? Everybody should be able to get access to the ballot. So it shouldn't be a thing of, it shouldn't be a thing of, well, I can't get off of work in time so I can go to the polls. Hey, well, it's on a holiday. You ain't got to go to work on this day, right? Go vote. Make it to where people have access to the absentee ballot. A lot of these Republican states don't want you to have access to absentee ballots. Why is that? Why is that? I'm going to tell you why. Republicans have never thought that everybody should have access to the ballot. They've never thought that. As a matter of fact, let me stop sharing this. I got something for y'all. This is a Republican operative. His name is Paul Weyrich, right? Paul Weyrich believed that, you should be limiting the access to the ballot. He was a Republican operative, and this was back in 1980. Now, this kind of goes back into, some of the stuff that I was talking about with Lee Atwater. When Lee Atwater was talking about how, the Southern strategy and how you code the language as to, getting legislation passed that disproportionately affects people of color, but you ain't necessarily like coming right out and saying the shit, right? So let me pull this up so you guys can see this too. But this is Paul Weyrich. And let's see what Paul Weyrich has to say, this Republican operative, about what it means for everybody to have access to the ballot.
Now, many of our Christians have what I call the goo-goo syndrome. Good government. They want everybody to vote. I don't want everybody to vote. Elections are not won by a majority of people. They never have been from the beginning of our country, and they are not now. As a matter of fact, our leverage in the elections, quite candidly, goes up as the voting populace goes down.
Our election leverage goes up as the voting populace goes down. They know, they've known this for a long time, especially in the conservative movement, that they are not the popular people. They are not they do not represent the vast majority of the American voter. And if the vast majority of the American voter has access to the ballot, they stand a snowball's chance in hell of winning any goddamn thing. They know this, right? They know this. So it's no surprise that when you have someone like a fucking Wesley Hunt, despite him being black, getting up there, talking this personal responsibility shit, while at the same time completely ignoring all of the systemic barriers that are being put in front of people of color while they're trying to exercise their right to vote. It ain't just about them having voter ID. It's not just about that. Everyone over the age of 18 should be registered to vote, period. They don't want us to have access to that. And so you got that going on, man. I just want, like, this is what I'm talking about when we start talking about these black grifters and shit. And, you know, like, I don't want to make this about interracial dating or marriage or anything like that, because I actually have no fucking problem with people dating interracially. I have no fucking problem with people who are of the LGBTQ community. If you find love where you find love, more fucking power to you. However, with people like a Wesley Hunt, or like, you know, the guys we have here in Michigan, like a John James, where they are, you know, conservative leaning black dudes, or Brandon Tatum, conservative leaning black dudes who found love in white women. But the issue that I have with them is not the love of white women. Love who you want to fucking love. My issue comes from them actively attacking the black community as if there is a natural pathology within black people. And that's why they advocate for the policies that they advocate for. Right? And so, you know, there's this acceptance of white people and white society that they seem to be clamoring for. But also, you know, it just comes at the expense of black people oftentimes. Right? So, yeah, man. We got that happened over the course of this week, man. As we talk about the RNC, as we talk about access to the ballot, man, the RNC just sued the Secretary of State of Michigan over the voter rolls. Yeah, man, the RNC is out here pulling the bullshit. So let me pull this story up so you guys can, well, let me see what we got. This comes from NBC News. Is there a video attached to this so I don't have to read all of this shit? Yeah, we're going to do this without supporting this time. I mean, y'all cool and all, but okay, so I do have to read the article. It's fine. But we get the story here. This comes from NBC News. It said that the Republican National Committee sued Michigan Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson, on a Democrat, on Wednesday in an attempt to force election officials to trim down the state's voter rolls. The lawsuit, which is filed in federal court, argues that Michigan is violated the National Voter Registration Act's requirement to maintain clean and accurate vote registration rolls. The move comes just days after Trump allies effectively took over the RNC's leadership ahead of the 2024 election. At least 53 Michigan counties have more active registered voters than they have adult citizens who are over the age of 18. That number of voters is impossibly high, the lawsuit said. An additional 23 counties have active voter registration rates that exceed 90% of adult citizens over the age of 18. That figure far eclipses the national and statewide voter registration rate in recent elections. America's voter rolls system is built for registration, not removal. The rolls often include outdated registration, as most voters do not remove themselves from the system when they move. And while federal law requires officials take steps to keep the rolls up to date, it also protects voters from overzealous purges by requiring that officials wait years to remove a voter who has simply stopped casting the ballot. Still, there is no evidence that bloated voter rolls lead to voter fraud, even as Republicans increasingly seize on the rolls as a focus of their election activism. Because again, across the country, they are attacking people's access to the ballot. They are purging people from these voter rolls. There are some people on these rolls who have been purged who had every right to vote, but for whatever reason, mostly because they don't want you to vote, right? Republicans have been adamant about trying to get people taken off of the voter rolls, not actually grow the voter rolls. Jocelyn Benson told NBC News in a statement that election officials in the state had done more in the last 5 years than was done in the previous 2 decades to remove deceased voters and ineligible citizens from our voting rolls and ensure their accuracy. She said that more than 700,000 voters have been removed from the voter rolls since she took office, while another 500,000 will be removed if they do not vote in this year's general election. Let's call this what it is: a PR campaign masquerading as a meritless lawsuit filled with baseless accusations that seek to diminish people's faith in the security of our elections. Shame on anyone who abuses the legal process to sow seeds of doubt in our democracy, Benson added. Now, I would also add this as well. because a lot of Republicans, especially Donald Trump at this particular point, have a beef with the idea of absentee balloting, right? I am a big fan of the absentee balloting. I am glad that we have absentee balloting here in Michigan, especially when they expanded it during COVID, because that gave me an opportunity when I had an absentee ballot to actually just sit in my dining room table, look over some of the names on that ballot to see if, like, yo, man, let me Google this motherfucker to see what they stand for. Let me see what policies they've actually advocated for. Let me see if this judge has made a ruling that I think is problematic and whether or not that person deserves my vote or not. How often have you stood in that damn that voter booth and you looked at some of the names on that ballot? You had no clue who they were, had no clue what they stood for, but you were asked to vote for that person, right? A lot of us has done that, especially when it comes to those judges. A lot of those judges, I don't know who the fuck these people is. I'm not before a judge every day. I'm not in the court system like that. I don't know what they talking about. So it's good for you to be able to just kind of sit down and be like, hey man, let me actually take a look at what these people, who they are and what they advocate for. And if I can see that beforehand, I can make an educated choice on who it is I'm actually giving my vote to. And so it's interesting that when you can take a absentee ballot and vote in that way, that the Republicans are saying, nah, that's fraud, man. You shouldn't be able to do that. You should not be able to do that.
Oh, yeah. There is powerful niggardry at work here.
They don't want you to know what they stand for before you cast the ballot. Come on now. And then on top of that, they're suing folks. They're suing the Secretary of State here in Michigan because what they say is there are more people registered to vote than there are actual adults over the age of 18. Like, some of those people may have passed on or whatever. That doesn't mean that they are actually going to vote. Just having an elevated number of people who are registered doesn't mean that those registered voters are actually going to cast a ballot. There's a lot of people even talking about staying home right now because they're not excited about who they have to vote for this year. So yeah, man, Republicans, again, showing their ass and not wanting people to be able to cast a ballot. This is what it is. And so this is why I won't waste my time talking to black Trump supporters, because the proof is in the motherfucking pudding. They ain't about us. They ain't about, real talk, they ain't about like a lot of the poor white folk either. Just unfortunately for the poor white folk, they just feel like, hey, I'm white, so I'm not going to be harmed by a lot of this shit. But ultimately, some of y'all are going to be harmed by some of the decisions that these people make. You just, kind of lean into the fact that you white. So there's that. Now, one of the things that really got people up in arms this week, man, was the fact that the government, the House of Representatives, these motherfuckers had a bipartisan mandate on this shit. They talking about banning TikTok, yo.
God damn!
Yeah, man. And my question is, will they really do it? Will they really do it? So we get this story here. Let me pull that down. But we get this story here. This comes out of, let me see, where do we get this story from? Because we get our story from like a lot of reputable places. We get this one here from the Associated Press. And from the Associated Press, they say the House is poised to pass a bill that could ban TikTok, but it faces an uncertain path in the Senate. So she would call me right now, and I'm actually like doing the show and shit. Come on, TT, I already told you that I was going to be doing the show. Now, let's see. The House poised to pass a bill that could ban TikTok, but it faces uncertain path in the Senate. Now, they've already voted for this in the House. The House has voted to ban TikTok, right? The Senate, maybe not so much, but we're going to read this story here. Like I said, this comes out of the Associated Press. It says a bill that could lead to a ban of the popular video app TikTok in the United States is expected to pass the House on Wednesday as lawmakers act on concerns that the company's ownership structure is a threat to national security. The bill will require the Chinese firm ByteDance to divest TikTok and other applications it owns within 6 months of the bill's enactment, or those apps would be prohibited. The lawmakers contend that ByteDance is beholden to the Chinese government, which could demand access to the data of TikTok consumers in the U.S. anytime it wants. The worry stems from a set of Chinese national security laws that compel organizations to assist with intelligence gathering. House passage of the bill could only be the first step. The Senate would also need to pass the measure for it to become law. The lawmakers in that chamber indicated that it would undergo a thorough review. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer of New York said that he would have to consult with the relevant committee chairs to determine the bill's path. President Joe Biden has said if Congress passes the measure, that he will sign it. It says the House voted The House vote is poised to open a new front in the long-running feud between lawmakers and the tech industry. Members of Congress have long been critical of tech platforms and their expansive influence, often clashing with executives over industry practices. But by targeting TikTok, lawmakers are singling out a platform popular with millions of people, many of whom skew younger, just months before an election. Ahead of the House vote, a top national security official in the Biden administration held a closed-door briefing Tuesday with lawmakers to discuss TikTok and the national security implications. Lawmakers are balancing those security concerns against a desire not to limit free speech online. So, interestingly enough about this, man, I just now kind of really started posting on TikTok. I haven't really been a TikToker, so to speak. That hasn't really been my jam, right? I'm of the mindset that like, yo, man, video content is supposed to be seen 16 by 9, not 9 by 16. You know what I'm saying? Give me the widescreen, baby. I ain't trying to look at my shit vertically. You know what I'm saying? You got that going on. I'm not really about that whole I'm a grab you in 30 seconds type. I'm a long-winded nigga. You know what I'm saying? So like TikTok has never really been my jam, but it has been a boon for a lot of people I know, man. Like my boy Sherman, man, my man in Chicago, Sherm Dilla, he's a Chicago historian, has like really taken his TikTok and catapulted that into, opening up a thriving business where not only is he able to give you Chicago historical facts, but also give you tours and show you the historical beauty of Chicago, right? And he did that based off of his TikTok page. So that's beautiful. That's beautiful. And so many other people have been able to kind of start businesses and branch out and show their creativity and all of these things based off of TikTok, right? And I know a lot of young folks, they get a lot of their information from TikTok. You start learning, hey man, did you know you could do this little trick in your house and like you can like jerry rig this and you create there's a lot of little information and shit. Like, the little dog videos and stuff. I like the dog videos, man. The dogs be cute and shit. Like I like that shit, right? But at the same time, there's this thing where, like in China, like the TikTok that they have in China is totally different than the one that we get here. It's not the same. Like they show us a lot of something, like some of the algorithm, it'll show you some of the stuff that sometimes it'll show you some bullshit. And oftentimes in China, they're showing them what the state wants them to see, right? What the state wants them to see. But like the idea of TikTok being a way for the Chinese government to spy on the American citizenry, a lot of folks are just like, man, nigga, I'm being spied on all the time any motherfucking way, right? That's the attitude a lot of folks have. Like, man, nigga, I mean, shit, I get on Google, nigga, prime example. Hey, man, I was just talking about getting a goddamn Freebird, clipper or whatever for my bald head, and I looked up, now I'm getting ads for Freebirds, nigga. You know what I'm saying? I'm getting the ads. Like everywhere I go on the internet, nigga, I just talked about some J's, and now all of a sudden they showing me the Jordan 11 gratitudes. You know what I'm saying? They spying on me already. So what's the use? Like, what do I care if the Chinese government is spying on me? Who the fuck am I? What they gonna get from me? And so a lot of folks have that attitude, right? That attitude. Like, yo, man, I don't give a fuck. They all spying. Y'all just mad that it ain't just the U.S. government spying on us, but they all spying on us, right? And I get it. I hear that. It's rational, motherfucking, it's actually kind of rational to think that way. Like, yo, man, they all spying on me. But at the same time, if you are dealing with, you might not necessarily think it's all that serious. You might not even be the target of TikTok, right? But you might be associated with someone who's a target of TikTok, who they're trying to influence. Who the fuck knows? This is all beyond us, the larger public. But if the government is saying like, yo, man, this is actually a fucking national security threat and we should take heed to that, it's come to the point now where the people don't care what the government thinking about shit. Right? Y'all can't even get my motherfucking water right. I got lead in my pipes, nigga. Y'all ain't even fixing it. And then, of course, oftentimes, if you know that the infrastructure plan is supposed to replace a lot of those lead pipes, you don't know that. But, that's information that could be found if you, were willing to look for it. You know what I'm saying? But a lot of folks ain't willing to look for it. The algorithm educates you in large part, right? And so there's a disconnect between the idea that although this app can be fun, this app is also a way for a foreign government to kind of infiltrate not only like the American populace, but also to kind of send certain messages at you, right? So think about it like this, right? There was a congressional hearing earlier this week where they had the CEO of TikTok in front of like some lawmakers, and they were asking him a bunch of different questions and stuff about whether or not, he said he's from Singapore and he lives in Singapore. He's not a citizen of the Chinese. He's not a citizen of China. He's not beholden to the Chinese government and all these other things, right? But then what they started doing was TikTok started sending to their users, hey, your government is seeking to make us sell, or like they're seeking to ban TikTok. So you should go to your government and let them know that like they are, they are infringing on your free speech rights and they're infringing on your expression and all this other stuff. Let them know that you don't want them to ban TikTok, right? And it reminded me a lot of, how when, cable channels, right? When cable channel and the cable provider are having a beef, right? They can't figure out the compensation that they should be like either giving or like receiving or whatever. And so the channel is like, listen here, man, Spectrum customers, Spectrum Cable doesn't want you to get all this sports coverage that we provide over here at FS1. So you should call your cable provider and let them know that you want to continue to get your sports coverage from FS1. They putting us in the middle of some bullshit that we ain't got nothing to do with. Mostly that's what this felt like when it comes to TikTok and the U.S. government. And then TikTok comes to the users and say, hey, U.S. users, your government is fucking with us. And you need to let the government know that we are not, like, if you want to continue to use us. So let them know that, like, call your congressperson and let them know. Like, it felt a lot like that, right? And like I said, I'm not the biggest TikTok user, but also, to me, it won't feel like much of a loss, right? I'm not a big TikTok user, so for me, it won't feel like much of a loss. But I can see it being a loss for a lot of people who have leveraged a lot of their social media presence into TikTok. It could be it could be a very big hit to whatever business they've started on TikTok and everything else. Now, interestingly enough, like, I kind of believe this is what will ultimately happen. I don't necessarily believe that TikTok is going to get banned, right? But if it were to get banned, I just kind of feel like a lot of the content that you guys were putting on TikTok are just going to move to YouTube Shorts and Instagram Reels. Because keep it a buck. A lot of the shit that I see on YouTube Shorts and Instagram Reels is just repurposed TikTok videos. So I like the doom and gloom part of it, I don't necessarily buy into, only because there are clones of TikTok already existing within the United States infrastructure as it stands already. But if you've already built up a following on TikTok, and now these people have to follow you someplace else, I could see how that could be an issue with you trying to build that audience back up. Because I know it takes years for people to build up said audiences, right? You got that going on. That's one aspect of this whole thing. Now, here's another aspect of it. If there was a group in America who was slated to buy TikTok, who would that be? Well, I'll tell you who was actually opting to try to be that group. And that is former Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin, who used to be Treasury Secretary under one Donald Trump.
I'll be a monkey's bare-assed uncle.
Yeah, man. So we get the story here. This also comes from the Associated Press. It says the former U.S. Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin says that he's going to put together an investor group to buy TikTok a day after the House of Representatives passed a bill that would ban the popular video app in the United States if its China-based owner doesn't sell its stake. TikTok, which has more than 170 million American users, is a wholly owned subsidiary of Chinese technology firm ByteDance. Speaking to CNBC's Squawk Box, Mnuchin said Thursday that he believes that TikTok should be sold. This should be owned by U.S. businesses. There's no way that the Chinese would ever let a U.S. company own something like this in China. Mnuchin, the U.S. Treasury Secretary under President Donald Trump, didn't provide details on who else may be included in the investor group he plans on forming or TikTok's possible valuation. TikTok did not immediately respond to a request for comment. Big tech companies could afford to buy TikTok, but would likely face intense scrutiny from antitrust regulators in both the U.S. and China. Then again, if the bill actually becomes law and survives the First Amendment court challenges, it could make TikTok cheaper to buy. The House bill passed by a vote of 352 to 65, now goes to the Senate, where its prospects are unclear. House lawmakers had acted on concerns that TikTok's current ownership structure is a national security threat. Now, the reason why I think it's interesting that Steve Mnuchin wants to buy TikTok, or is trying to put an investment group together to buy TikTok, it would be yet another major American social media application that will be in the hands of someone who is of the conservative bent, right? And they are also trying, like, you got to, not only are they of the conservative bent, but they are the far right conservative bent, because Twitter was also bought by someone who is now, as we see, of a certain conservative bent, Elon Musk. And so you look at Elon Musk owning Twitter and what has happened to Twitter since he's bought it, where you see a rise in hate speech coming up on Twitter, where you see a rise of misinformation being posted on Twitter, where you see the actual owner of Twitter espousing some of the misinformation from his particular account directly, right? And he calls himself a free speech absolutist, right? He calls himself a free speech absolutist, but he is, he's amplifying a lot of misinformation. And so when you think about, there's one conservative billionaire, mega millionaire, who owns a social media platform, and then you have another who's chomping at the bit to buy yet another one, you got to wonder, like, why are they so interested in buying these? And of course, they want to buy these because they know that these give them access to eyeballs, these give them access to everyone's phones, and then they can put whatever messaging it is that they want to you, whether that be true information or not. But they control the pipelines. They control the medium. And if they control the medium, guess what? You can start seeing a lot of your favorite voices, who might not necessarily be of the conservative bent, finding themselves no longer being platformed there. They like, maybe they get shadow banned, where their information and their content isn't being shown as prominently as it was before, right? This is something that a lot of conservatives have said that has been happening to them on social media platforms. They've been shadow banned. Their rhetoric has been kind of deprioritized, so to speak, so people aren't able to see it, and yet they are buying up platforms in order to amplify a lot of those messages. So it's going to be real interesting to see what happens with this. Ultimately, I do not think that TikTok is going to be banned. I think that something is going to happen. And I really do. I think that something's going to happen. I don't know. I don't even know if it's going to get past the Senate. I really don't. But what I would, if I was someone who has been, doing this thing with TikTok, and I like kind of wrap my whole business around that, it might be time to start diversifying your shit. Right? They always say you to diversify your portfolio. It might be time to, hey man, I might really need to start leaning into that YouTube Shorts. I might really need to start leaning into that Instagram Reels, because if this TikTok thing goes to shit, you don't want to be stuck with holding your dick just like with nothing else, going on. So you got that going on. Now, we've been talking about some heavy shit. Let me move into something a little bit more, a little bit lighter, I guess, right? So I saw this on my Facebook earlier this week, and I thought it was kind of funny. I didn't see this on any motherfucking real news shit, right? So take this with a grain of salt. Take it with a grain of salt. But there was a story that I saw on my social media that said there was a Detroit public schools teacher who was fired because she was a rapper on the motherfucking side, man. Yeah, man. So let me see if I can pull this video. I believe I have a video of this young lady who was a teacher, because not only did they say she was a teacher and she got fired for rapping, but she was also, after she got fired, they said she filmed a fucking music video right outside the school with the students right after she got let go. All right. So, yeah, man, we gonna pull this up because this is actually supposed to be the music video of what she did. So let me see if we can, let me do this here so we can watch this together as a family. So let's do this here. This video is called Drippin' 101. Let's see what they talk about.
Motown baby going crazy like the 80s. Motown baby going crazy like the
Motown baby going crazy like the 80s. Motown baby going crazy like the 80s. Motown baby going crazy like the 80s. I put it on the floor and I dare bitch to take a nigga.
Okay, first thing first. She looks quite young. so she's a young teacher. But also it looks like her students fucking love her, man. I think it's the idea that the students get a chance to be in a motherfucking music video and they ready for the turn up. But looks like her students love her, but she also looks young as shit.
Running around the city, owe me money, shit is silly. Buy my money just like 50 hoes, mad I got the power and the juice now. Been talking shit, I'm from the 482 line. This nigga texting me, but I ain't never got the time. He asked him how I'm doing, bitch, I'm always on the grind. I'm just getting started if a nigga think I'm lying. The money's where my mind at. Got that raw honey, you can find me with a hive at. Real, recognize real, who the fuck is y'all? Get that nigga play and I watch him drop the ball. Niggas wanna blame me, how the fuck you fall? If my back against the wall, run it up till I can't no more. I ain't no hoe, I'm bout the dough. Switching seats in the foe, but my eyes low. Get everything I touch though. Hey, I get everything I touch though. Motown baby going crazy like the 80s. Motown baby going crazy like the 80s.
All right. That's enough of that. But yeah, I'm gonna be honest with y'all. It sounds like a lot of shit coming out of out of Detroit right now. Right? Sound like a lot of shit that's coming out of the D right now. I hope that her going all in on her music pans out for this young lady. I really do. No hate coming from your boy. You know what I'm saying? Like, I really do hope that she is able to parlay this into a real and actual fucking music career. I don't know how true it was that she was a teacher and she got fired for being a rapper. And as soon as she got fired, she had the video queued up, all right, we gonna be filming this shit as soon as I get fired. I don't know how true that is, but I did see this coming down my timeline, and yeah, man. I thought it was interesting. So I decided to we were gonna talk about that tonight. So you got that going on. Another story that we got going on. Let me pull this down here. So yeah, let's do that. But another story that we got going on. So this is interesting. There was a survey done, a recent Gallup survey, where it says that 30% of Gen Z women said that 30% of Gen Z women identify as LGBTQ.
I'll be a monkey's bare-assed uncle.
And I know conservatives have got to be losing their motherfucking mind after hearing numbers as big as 30%. So we're going to read this. We're going to read from this story here. Let me see where this comes out of NBC News. And it says that the percentage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer adults in the United States continues to increase, reaching an all-time high of 7.6%, man. Now, mind you, this is the all-time high of the entire population of the LGBTQ community, 7.6%. And yet, there are so many people who, because they know, more and more people who are coming out and being comfortable with who they are publicly, who think they're like, oh my God, the gays is taking over, man. They're getting all these rights and shit. It's like, nah, man, it ain't that. It ain't even a big population. 7.6% of the entire U.S. population identifies as LGBTQ. And 30% of Generation Z women are identified as LGBTQ as a part of that community. This is broken down by gender. The survey of 12,000 people 18 and older across the country found that women were nearly twice as likely as men to identify as LGBTQ. Almost 30% of Gen Z women identify as LGBTQ+, most as bisexual. Jeffrey Jones, a senior editor at Gallup, told NBC News. That's where a lot of the growth seems to be happening. This is the first year that Gallup has laid out its annual LGBTQ identification report in a way that breaks down each generation by gender. Looking at all generations, 8.5% of women and 4.7% of men identified as LGBTQ, the survey found. The survey reported margins of sampling error of plus or minus 4 percentage points among LGBTQ respondents. Parsing each generation, the gender story gets more interesting. In the three younger generations surveyed, Generation Z, Millennials, and Generation X, women were more likely than men to identify as LGBTQ. However, in the two oldest generations, Baby Boomers and the Silent Generation, It is reversed. The gender breakdown does not account for non-binary respondents who represented about 1% of those surveyed. The group most likely to identify as LGBTQ by far was Generation Z women, ages 18 to 26, who was at 28.5% of whom identified as LGBTQ in the survey. The lion's share of them, of all the Gen Z women surveyed, 20.7% identified as bisexual, followed by 5.4% who identified as lesbians. Gen Z women were nearly 3 times more likely than Gen Z men to identify as LGBTQ. Bisexuals made up the highest percentage of LGBTQ respondents at 57.3%, or 4.4% of all adults surveyed. Gay men represented 18.1% of LGBTQ respondents, lesbians 15.1%, and transgender people 11.8%, the survey found. It is important how much the LGBTQ community is bisexual, and it's important how much of the LGBTQ community is bisexual, and that's definitely something we see among younger generations. Now, as we talk about this, there's a lot of folk who tend to believe that it's the culture who allows these kids, the culture is turning the kids gay and shit. It's, they see it in the movies and they see it in the music, they hear it in the music and shit, and these kids been doing this. It's only because, they see it in the pop culture and all this other stuff, and it kind of totally ignores that the fact that there have been people of the LGBTQ community for a long time, right? Even when it was not as acceptable as it is now, there's always been an LGBTQ portion of our population. It always has been, despite the stigma attached to it. People are going to be who they are, right? And no amount of pop culture is going to make them be someone that they're not, right? And it's weird when you talk to heterosexual folk about it, because they are adamant that there's nothing that can turn them gay, right? I was straight from the time I was born. Okay, cool. Then why is it impossible to you to fathom the idea that someone could be not straight from the time that they were born? Why is that so impossible for you to believe, right? I think that more people being free or free to identify themselves now actually allows for them to live a more healthier life, because they're not pretending any motherfucking more. Right? I remember there would be people where, hey, I got to get married to this dude, even though I don't love this guy. I'm not even attracted to men, but I got to get married to him because I need to keep up appearances for my family. Same thing with the guys. I'm not even attracted to women. I had babies with this woman. I married this woman. I had no feelings for this woman, but I had to do all of this stuff to hide who I truly was. And then, like, in the 90s or like the early 2000s shit, we sensationalized that shit with the down low stuff. Like, oh man, you got to be watching out for these down low men, girl, and all this. The reason why they were down low is because they couldn't actually, we were living in a time where they couldn't actually just be free as to who the fuck they were. And to a large degree, we still have a lot of bigotry surrounding the LGBTQ community, right? And so much of it has to do with like people who are just not necessarily comfortable with the idea that the science kept evolving, despite the fact that they were comfortable with how things used to be. The science didn't stop, just your understanding of it did. So, yeah, man, like the fact that there are 30% of Gen Z women identifying as LGBTQ, I'm not surprised by that. You know what I'm saying? Because it's just a reflection of how much as a society we have become more open to the idea, like, yo, man, like, that's just who they are. And it's okay. It's okay for, like, to allow people to live the life in which they choose to live. It doesn't affect you in any way, in any real way whatsoever. And as a parent of, say, for instance, if you have a parent, if you are a parent of an LGBTQ child, I also come from a time where, like, people were, like, disowning their children. You say you love your children unconditionally, but if they came home with another, like, the person of the same sex, then suddenly they're not allowed in the house. Now your kids, like, now you got, like, people really living in dire situations where they don't have the support system that they should have from their family, because their family is so worried about what this means for not only like what this means for them, what it look like to the community, what that look like. I got a gay son, especially like hyper masculine dudes. You know what I'm saying? Like, man, I can't be going around here telling these niggas, man, I got a gay son. Man, what the fuck they gonna think of me? If they think anything less of you, then fuck them, is the answer that you should be having in your head. But, yeah, man, I thought that was interesting. That like, yo, 30%, and I know that it's gonna be one of those things where, the people who are already against those who are living an LGBTQ life, who are living the life that like they not only chose to live, but also because they're living a life as to who they really are. There are going to be people who have issues with it, and there are going to be people who look at that particular number and say, they're like, yep, it's because of the music, it's because of the movies, it's because y'all letting them do it. It's like, hey, nigga, like, who am I to just let somebody live the life that they are to live? It ain't none of my motherfucking business, and it ain't none of yours. Mind your business. Mind your business. So you got that going on. Speaking of the LGBTQ community, though, Riley Gaines, she was a former swimmer from the University of Kentucky, and she is suing the NCAA because, well, I'm thinking that it has something to do with the fact that she tied for 5th in the national championships with Leah Thompson, who just happens to be a transgender, a trans woman who swam for the University of Pennsylvania. Yeah, man. So we get this story here. Let me see. Where did I get this from? Here she go. We get this, again, from the Associated Press. We like the Associated Press over here at the Spann Report Podcast Network and the Mrs. Spann Official Podcast. But, so former Kentucky swimmer Riley Gaines was among more than a dozen college athletes who filed a lawsuit against the NCAA on Thursday, accusing it of violating their Title IX rights by allowing Leah Thomas to compete in the national championships in 2022. So this was fucking 2 fucking years ago, man.
I'll be a monkey's bare-assed uncle.
And she's still on this shit. It says the lawsuit filed in the U.S. District Court in Atlanta details the shock that Gaines and other swimmers felt when they learned that they would have to share a locker room with Thomas at the championships in Atlanta. It documents a number of races they swam in with Thomas, including the 200-yard final in which Thomas and Gaines tied for 5th, but Thomas, not Gaines, was handed the 5th-place trophy. And she been salty ever since. Another plaintiff, Taylor Matthew of Florida, finished 9th in the preliminary heats of a 500 free, which left her 1 spot from swimming in the final that Thomas would go on to win. Thomas was the first openly transgender athlete to win a Division I title in any sport, finishing in front of 3 Olympic medalists for the championship. By not making the final, Matthew was denied first-team All-American honors in that event. Other plaintiffs include athletes from volleyball and track. The lawsuit said the plaintiffs bring this case to secure future generations of women the promise of Title IX, that is being denied them and other college women by the NCAA. The NCAA declined to comment on the lawsuit. Critics contend that transgender athletes have an advantage over cisgender women in competition, though extensive research is still generally lacking on elite athletics and virtually non-existent when it comes to determining whether, for instance, a sophomore transgender girl has a clear advantage over her cisgender opponents or teammates. In 2022, the NCAA followed the lead of the U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Committee and revised its policies on transgender athlete participation to attempt to align with national sports governing bodies. The third phase of the revised policy adds national and international sports governing bodies standards to the NCAA rules, and is scheduled to be implemented for the 2024-25 school year. The lawsuit also lists the University of Georgia system as a defendant because one of its schools, Georgia Tech, hosted the 2022 championships. The suit seeks to halt the NCAA from employing its transgender eligibility policies, which adversely impact female athletes in violation of Title IX at upcoming events being held in Georgia. So, one of the things, and I think I've talked about this particular topic at length on the Spann Report before, where we talked about the idea that trans athletes, especially trans women, because this seems to be the only particular part of the trans athlete that people seem to care about, right? And there's this idea that trans women are taking away opportunities and scholarships and accolades from cisgender women when they compete on the same on the same level, right? And there's this idea that I think a lot of people have, and we've already talked about how small the LGBTQ community is as a whole, 7.6% of the entire fucking population. And then if you take that and then you extrapolate that from like how many of those people actually identify as a transgender person, that number becomes even more minuscule. And then you like take that and then you say, well, how many of these transgender people who are actually trying to compete athletically on the collegiate level, and then the number becomes even more minuscule, right? And I say all that to say that when people are talking about this, the idea of a trans person competing in a competition with cisgender women, that they inherently have an advantage against these women, right? Now, as I read this story, we talked about Leah Thomas coming in fifth. She didn't dominate anything. She came in fifth. As a matter of fact, Leah Thomas and Riley Gaines tied for fifth. So if Leah Thomas had an advantage on anybody, could it just be that like it was the people who were just a little bit slower? Because there was at least four women who beat Leah Thomas. There were at least four women who were ahead of Leah Thomas and Riley Gaines. Those women are not a part of this motherfucking lawsuit, right? Those women are not a part of this lawsuit. They actually went out there, they competed, and they won. Meanwhile, Riley Gaines, fifth place Riley Gaines, believes that Leah Thomas kept her from fifth place that they tied for. I mean, come on, man. There's this thing, man. I want people to understand this. It's like, yo, there's this idea that trans women are taking over women's sports. And I want y'all to like, if you didn't Google this shit, you probably wouldn't even know the names of any of the trans women who are competing in college sports right now. You really do have to search high and low for those names, because not many people can actually name a trans athlete in any fucking sport without Googling the shit. And yet, if you go on the news, you would think that this was something that was happening all the time. This is happening in all, like, the trans people are taking over women's sports. It's not happening like that. Even Leah Thomas wasn't dominating women's swimming. They came in fifth. So the fact that Riley Gaines has really, who has really been like, she's been on this war path, man. She's really leaned into like, a lot of the conservative echo chamber. She's a Donald Trump supporter. She goes on Fox News quite a bit. The fact that like 2 years later, she's still on this shit. Now she's suing the NCAA. In large part, I believe that like, yo, it's kind of one of those things like this, right? I remember when they were fighting affirmative action in college admissions, and they found an Asian family or an Asian student who was saying that they were being denied access to college admissions because of affirmative action, because Asians were considered a model minority, and they were being, their status as a model minority was keeping them from actually getting some of the positions in these colleges that they would have rightfully gained had it not been for affirmative action. And so what ended up happening was they used this Asian person to get rid of affirmative action, and now a lot of those Asian people still aren't getting those positions, but a lot of those white kids are. Right? This kind of lends into one of those situations where, this woman goes forth before a court to say that, hey, I shouldn't have to compete against a trans person, despite the fact that trans people don't really have a lot of people to compete against anyway. And this trans person has an unfair advantage against me, despite the fact that this trans person also finished fifth right alongside her. And like, if I can get this trans person out of this, I disenfranchise this trans person from being able to compete on a national level, but also, I might still not be able to compete because I'm just not that good. I'm not that good. So the the similarities in this is like we're noticing how a lot of the conservatives are using the judicial system as politics. A lot of these conservatives are going to these courts and they're coming up with these specious arguments as a way to discriminate against an already marginalized group, as a way to kind of hold on to whatever levers of privilege and advantage that they already intrinsically have as being a white person here in America, or being, in this case, a white woman here in America, right? So, yeah, man, like the fact that this is happening years after the fact, like she's still on this years afterward. It's like, again, who can name right now, off the top of their head, who can name the latest trans athlete, trans woman who's won a national championship in any college, in any college sport, Division I in America? Who can name one? Who can name one right off of the top of their head? I challenge you to be able to do that without necessarily going to Google or in your favorite search engine or your favorite AI bot and finding out who that person is, because most people have no clue who these people are because there aren't that many of them to begin with. So, got that going on. Let's see what else we got here. We're gonna talk about this real quick. So, yes, Jules. I believe she was like an influencer of some sort on social media, whatever. I'm not really familiar with her and all that. In like much at all, really. Let's keep it a buck. I don't really know who the fuck she is. I do remember though, there was a time, I forget whether it was a singer or a rapper or somebody who was taken up for her because she was out here, she was a white girl and she was out here saying nigga. And one of these dudes, one of these black dudes, I can't remember. I want to say it was fucking Daniel Caesar. I want to say it was Daniel Caesar, who was friends with Yes Jules or something like that, and he was really out here adamantly like taking up for her and her ability and her right to say nigga and all this other stuff. And we just talked about whether or not Fat Joe even has the right to say nigga no more, considering his copying of the Trump shoes. But yeah. Yes, Jules was one of those type of influencers. She was a white person who said some problematic shit, and somehow she found herself working for Kanye West, right? Now, Kanye West somehow got tired of her, and then he fired her ass, right? Nigga! He fired her. But then on top of him firing her, they thought about bringing her ass back.
Niggas.
Yeah, so we get this story here. This comes from Complex, okay? And it says that Yes Jules responds after being fired by Kanye. She says, fuck it, NDA, sue me, okay? It says a social media personality called Milo Yiannopoulos, the alt-right figure and Yeezy's chief of staff. This nigga got a chief of staff. Milo Pedophilis, while airing out her side of the story. Let's see. We'll read from this. It says, Yes Jules has shared her correspondence with an email report purportedly from Milo Yiannopoulos, who is now reconsidering her firing. Ye and I have been listening to your current Twitter spaces. We are willing to meet and reconsider next steps and your future with Yeezy as a contractor, he wrote. Jules responded, as soon as Yeezy is free of pedophilic, sexist, homophobic, racist, I will be more than happy to speak to Ye directly after being a part of the team. Obviously, this means you need to quit or be fired. Now, hold on a second. He'd have to rid himself of pedophilic, sexist, homophobic, racist. Does she not know that she was working with Kanye West? Has she not paid attention to any of the bullshit that Kanye West has been out here spewing over the last few years? Does she not realize how ridiculous that sounds, considering who she's talking about, maybe considering going back to work for? All right. Let's see. It says, here's a screenshot of it. It says, call me, Ye, always here for you. Juliana, Ye and I have been listening to your current Twitter spaces. We are willing to meet and reconsider next steps in your future with Yeezy as a contractor. Please call me immediately. You are not to associate with the Twitter fan accounts until further notice. All further communication should go through the good ass subreddit. Okay, so that was just a screenshot of the emails. Let's see. It says on Tuesday, Yes Jules was publicly let go by Ye and his team. We have decided to no longer have Yes Jules involved in the rollout of Vultures, read Kanye's since deleted Instagram post. All the activity on her page and with our fans in the past few days have been unauthorized. The social media personality's talent manager, who was present at events promoting West's Vultures album with Ty Dolla $ign and has molded merch on her Instagram, responded on X a day later, complimenting Ye's musical mission in the process. Ye is up against the system, Yes Jules began in an epic string of tweets, having the discussion with fans in an open forum setting, was unconventional, but it allowed for inclusivity and open visibility for an entire fan base to opt in, give feedback, be heard, connect with one another to combine efforts, which is what I feel is needed for Ye to stay on top of these next 2 runs. I was also given specific direction to rally the fans, let them each lead their own chapters, activate within their locations. This is my way of doing things, so I'm not an unconventional woman. And this is why I worked at the company I worked for in the first place. The 34-year-old went on to address many other things, Milo Yiannopoulos, the alt-right figure, and Ye chief of staff, whom she called Milo Pedophilus. Okay, and okay. I'm gonna be real with y'all. I don't care no more. I don't care no more. Seems like a lot going on with a bunch of people who I really don't consider serious motherfuckers, right? If you are considering the fact that like, Ye's chief of staff is pedophile, is racist and homophobic and all these other things, and like, but also being able to totally ignore all of the problematic shit that Kanye West himself has said and all the problematic shit that Ye has caused for himself as a reason why he finds himself in the predicament that he does, then I don't think any of us should care that you lost your fucking job, and also whether or not you get said job back. Fuck all y'all, to be quite honest with you. That's how I feel about it. Fuck all y'all. All of y'all kick rocks with no shoes on. Real talk. So yeah, we got that going on. Let's see what else we got. What else we got? Oh shit, yeah, we had this happen this week. Don Lemon got fired this week. And I know what y'all are thinking. Didn't Don Lemon get fired already this year? And yes, he did.
Well, that'll be a monkey's bare-assed uncle.
Yeah, man. Yes, he did. So we get this story here. Well, we got a couple different sources for this story, but we get this story here. This comes from, we're gonna get this from the Hollywood Reporter. We're gonna read from the Hollywood Reporter. It said the former CNN host interviewed the tech mogul last week with the chat set to be launched. Set to be the launch episode of his new Don Lemon show. Don Lemon won't be bringing a show to Elon Musk's X platform after all. Lemon on Wednesday said that Musk has canceled the partnership I had with X. He informed me of the decision hours after an interview I conducted with him on Friday. The interview with Musk is slated to be the debut episode of the Don Lemon Show, which was supposed to debut on X, formerly known as Twitter, and YouTube. Lemon says that the interview will run as planned on YouTube and that future episodes will be released there. Lemon said that there was no restrictions in the interview and that we had a good conversation. Clearly, he felt differently. Replying to a comment on X, Musk said that they canceled the show because his approach was basically just CNN but on social media, which doesn't work, as evidenced by the fact that CNN is dying. And instead of it being the real Don Lemon, it was really just Jeff Zucker talking through Don, so it lacked authenticity. X is a platform that champions free speech, and we're proud to provide an open environment for diverse voices and perspective. X also said in a statement that the Don Lemon Show is welcome to publish its content on X without censorship, as we believe in providing a platform for creators to scale their work and connect with new communities. However, like any enterprise, we reserve the right to make decisions about our business partnerships, and after careful consideration, X decided not to enter into commercial partnership with the show. Now, there was a portion of the show. Don Lemon has been on like a bit of a promotional tour, so to speak. And I kind of wondered to some degree whether or not this was like staged, right? Whether or not this was always going to be what it was going to be. Because, like I said, Don Lemon he's been on CNN. He got fired from CNN. They brought it back to talk about this shit. He's been on The View. I believe he went on News Nation with his old homeboy Chris Cuomo and shit to talk about this. But yeah, they've been talking about this. His interview and whether or not he got fired because of the interview. And so, yeah, we're going to play a portion of this. Let me see if I can get this timed here, right? We're going to play a portion of this interview and see why exactly Elon Musk wasn't really fucking with, Don Lemon. So let me pull this up so you guys can watch right along with me. Let me do this here, and this here, and that, and boom. Let's see what he talking. Let's see what Elon Musk and Don Lemon was talking about.
I believe that women and minority pilots are inherently less intelligent and less skilled than white male pilots?
No, I'm just saying that we should not lower the standards for them.
But there's no evidence that standards are being lowered when it comes to the airline industry.
You've repeatedly said that there's no evidence that standards are being lowered, and watch the replies showing all the evidence that it is.
Replies, though, on social media or on Twitter are not necessarily fact and evidence.
No,
that's people's opinion.
They will cite all the replies. In the replies to this, you will see how often the information is cited, showing that indeed there are significant cases where standards are lowered.
Oh. So he just believes conspiracy theory.
Well, explain to them what DEI stands for. Not everybody knows.
Diversity, equity, and inclusion. Basically, it's making sure that that the workforce reflects the population of the country, for women, minorities, for all people. Right.
All right. So you saw that, right? So check this out, right? What we just saw, though, when it comes to Elon Musk, is just how much Elon Musk is ensconced in a Twitter bubble, right? And this is one of those things that kind of happens when you are chronically online, when your worldview is totally in constant, like just some of the things, just what your timeline shows you. And it's also one of those things where, like, especially here in 2024, where, like, if you haven't been paying attention, there have been concerted efforts by foreign entities to ferment divisions within the United States, right? We know this. We've seen this. We saw what happened with Cambridge Analytica. We saw how that information was used to target voters and send them specific messages. We've seen how that manifested itself in how people believe that the 2020 election was stolen from Donald Trump. And I could talk to you at great length about how he primed them motherfuckers up for months to believe that the election was stolen before anybody had even cast a ballot. He was telling people, if I lose, it was stolen, right? Not that it was legitimate that he fucking lost. No, he was telling people before the ballots had even been counted, if I lose, they robbed us, right? And there was a whole bunch of different mechanisms that to use in order to convince people of that. And social media was a driving force behind that. So to hear someone as rich as fucking Elon Musk, and I want this to be like clear right now, because and let me pull this down. I want this to be absolutely motherfucking understood. There's this idea that the reason why people are rich is because they are exponentially fucking smarter than every motherfucking body else. And oftentimes that is not the case. You got a lot of very brilliant people who do not have the resources in front of them to be able to express their brilliance, right? Meanwhile, you got people like Elon Musk who believes that Twitter replies are the mechanism by which you determine whether or not DEI is good or bad for the country, because in his Twitter replies, he's seeing people say the standards are being lowered for black people, for women, for people of the LGBTQ community to be in these positions. And he believes it. Here's a billionaire motherfucker who is in control of Tesla, who is in control of having people send rockets to space, who is in control of having satellites with even the Ukrainian government is using that Starlink shit in order for them to communicate their like militarily. This dude is in charge of that. And yet this guy is in charge of that. And yet he's susceptible because of his chronic being online, of his chronicness of being online, his addiction to Twitter has him believing that, like, yo, DEI is the bane of our existence because we're lowering the standards for pilots. There was an airline, a Boeing plane, where one of the doors flew off of a Boeing plane, and it was a woman pilot who was flying that jet. She safely landed that plane, safely landed it. If that did not speak to her motherfucking expertise and her goddamn ability to safely land that fucking plane, then what the hell else could it be? That despite that despite the fact that there was an emergency, this woman under pressure landed that plane and got everybody on the ground safely. And yet your argument is that diversity, equity, and inclusion is lowering standards for people to be airline pilots. The diversity, equity, and inclusion is the reason why we talked about this last week. That plane slid off of the runway down in Texas. Nobody got hurt. But the implication is, and the assertion that they're making is that black people, women, those of the LGBTQ community are less qualified for these positions, and we never question the qualifications and the abilities of white people who have traditionally held these spots, despite the fact that planes didn't crash all the time. Like, there were times where, like, it was only white men flying these planes, and the motherfuckers was crashing. Did we question their ability to fucking be, pilots and shit then? No, we didn't. It was just an unquestioned thing. So the idea that the diversity, equity, and inclusion shit, man, is bullshit. But we got some comments here in the chat room. So let me highlight some folks here. My man Orion De Burrell, he said, "What up, though, Square? Good stuff. I appreciate you, Square." Shout out, my brother. Real talk, man. Also, the Sean Antonio Experience, man. OHMC is in the building, man. One love, my brother. Salute to you as well, man. Also, Orion writes in and says, "Devil's Advocate." And y'all know how we feel about devil's advocates around here. But Ronnie writes, he said, "Devil's Advocate, Twitter has real people making posts. Therefore, that is his tribe and issues it for the basis of his data." Again, I get that, right? Like, we all have our tribes on Twitter, but also we need to kind of disassociate. We kind of, that makes the argument for us in our need to unplug to some degree, right? And our need to actually have conversations with people outside of our online communities, right? In much the same way that, like, some of, like I can base this entire show just based on what I see on the internet. But oftentimes I try to bring what I deal with in everyday life into how I present what it is that I'm going to talk about here on the show, right? And I work in a blue collar job. You know what I'm saying? I'm surrounded by some blue collar dudes every day. And oftentimes, despite the fact that what I think these dudes should be thinking, oftentimes it ain't what they thinking, right? So, there's this thing that, we kind of get in constant our own bubbles, but we need to kind of pierce those. We need to kind of pierce those bubbles. And, every now and again, you will see that other people aren't necessarily going to agree with you. And I'm fine with other people not agreeing with us. But at the same time, when your disagreement has a dire effect on others, right, and their ability to live and their ability to kind of like go about their daily lives and how they pursue their happiness, when our disagreement lies there, that's where I really have the most issue, right? That's where I have the most issue. And then he also goes on to say, let's see, what's the other comment here? He says that Twitter has real people making those posts. Twitter has 550 million people attached to it. Therefore, that is his tribe, and he uses it as the basis for his data. Yeah, but even with the 550 million people, right? Like, so I have a Twitter account. I've been on Twitter. I had been on Twitter since 2009, long time. But I can tell you right now, my account is still active. I'm very seldom on there now, right? After Elon Musk bought Twitter and stuff like that, there's a lot of people who still have accounts that are technically active, but they're not really on Twitter like that. And a lot of folks have moved on to other platforms like Blue Sky Social, like Mastodon, like Threads. I'm on Threads heavy. I like Threads. Threads to me seems to be like the heir apparent of what Twitter used to be, right? But yeah, man, there, even with the 550 million people being attached to Twitter, I'm sure that even Elon Musk, oftentimes just kind of based on a lot of the things that Elon Musk says, there's a lane that Elon Musk, when it comes to his followers, there's a lane that he's kind of going down, right? And there's only a certain amount of people that he's really taking heed and listening to. So when you know that, like, yo, he's kind of leaning a certain way, and he propagates, so like it's been so many different times where he's propagated a lot of right-wing conspiracy theorist sort of thinking. It's like, all right, like, yeah, he's talking this, you know, he's talking free speech absolutism, but if you were really about the free speech absolutism, then would you really have just said, fuck it, I'm about to pull out of this deal with Don Lemon after he asked me these questions that I didn't necessarily like, right? Because, like, think about it. Elon Musk talks about the biggest thing about free speech is being, like, hearing something that you don't like from people that you don't like. And that just being a thing. Like, you should be able to listen to things that you don't like from people that you don't like and not be able to censor those folks. And it's fine for him when people are propagating racist propaganda, whether or not they're propagating anti-LGBTQ propaganda on his platform. But if, you know, you start speaking on some like, hey man, like the right is doing, you know, they're curtailing our right to vote, or the right is curtailing our right to learn about our history because they're deeming anything that has to do with American history dealing with black folks, they're calling that shit CRT. If he's against that and he starts censoring folks about that, he's not the free speech absolutist that he proclaims himself to be. And so that was one of the reasons why I divested myself in large part from Twitter. Right? Like it got to a point with, like, when I started seeing some of the things that he was amplifying and also some of the things he was cutting away, like, yeah, all right, I got to find somewhere else to go. I can't do this shit no more. And so when other platforms start coming about, I think I might fuck with this Thread shit. Now, even Thread's got his issues. Threads don't want to talk politics. They don't want to prioritize politics. They don't want to really prioritize real-time news on that platform, right? So you got that issue with that. But, like, yo, I think people are starting to figure out, like, there could be other places for us to go, and we don't have to necessarily rely on Twitter as much as we did before for some of the real-time news and social issues that we kind of want to talk about. But I appreciate you writing in, brother. And let's see what else. He got one more comment here, and he says, I agree with you 100. Just saying. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely, man. Real talk. Good to hear from you, brother. It's been a long time. Okay, so what else we got here? We got something else. That's enough of the Don Lemon. Oh, shit, yeah. Let's talk about this here, man. Fonnie Willis is in the news, man. So apparently Fonnie Willis gets to stay on the goddamn case, man. She gets to stay. Yeah, man, a judge ruled that Fonnie Willis is able to stay on this voter interference case down in Georgia. But in order for her to stay on the case, the dude, Nate Wade, that she had on the case, that they were trying to say that, you know, it was the inappropriate relationship between him and her, he got to go. He had to go. Nigga! Yeah, man. So, let's see. Let me see where I got this story at. Where did I get it from? And let me close that. Where did I get this story from? Where are we? Here we go. We get this from NBC News, man. And on NBC News, it says that Fulton County DA Fonnie Willis' case against Trump can continue if she or Special Counsel Wade remove themselves. A Georgia judge ruled Friday that Fulton County District Attorney Fonnie Willis should not be disqualified from prosecuting the racketeering case against former President Donald Trump and several co-defendants, one with one major condition. Fulton County Superior Court Judge Scott McAfee found that appearance impropriety brought by Willis's romantic relationship with Special Prosecutor Nathan Wade should result in either Willis and her office leaving the case or just Wade, who she'd appointed to head the case. The choice is likely to be an easy one. If Willis were to remove herself, the case would come to a halt, but having Wade leave will ensure that the case continues without further delay. The judge also found that there was no actual conflict brought about by the relationship, a finding that would have required Willis to be disqualified. Without sufficient evidence that the district attorney acquired a personal stake in the prosecution or that her financial arrangements had any impact on the case, the defendant's claims of an actual conflict must be denied. The finding is by no means an indication that the court condones this tremendous lapse in judgment or the unprofessional manner of the district attorney's testimony during the evidentiary hearing. Rather, it is undersigned's opinion that Georgia law does not permit the finding of an actual conflict for simply making bad choices, even repeatedly, and it is a trial court's duty to confine itself to the relevant issues and applicable law properly brought before it. So basically what he's saying is, yeah, I didn't like how Fonnie Willis came through here and was talking that shit while she would call, she called herself defending herself. I thought that was some bullshit, but it wasn't, like even that, despite that, like what y'all presented to us wasn't enough to get her thrown completely off of this case, and we are not going to throw this out of the case. I said the judge did, however, find that the prosecution is encumbered by an appearance of impropriety as the case moves forward. Reasonable members of the public could easily be left to wonder whether the financial exchanges have continued, resulting in some form of benefit to the district attorney, or even whether the romantic relationship has resumed, he wrote. As long as Wade remains on this case, this unnecessary perception will persist. The decision is a partial victory for Willis and leaves open the possibility that the case could be tried before the 2024 presidential election, which I think is the most important. Had Willis been disqualified outright, the case would have had to go to a different prosecutor who would be tasked with catching up on the case that Willis spent over 2 years building. So, here's what I got to say about this shit, man. I know we got, we got some kicks and giggles, shits and giggles from seeing her go up there with the attitude, man, with the indignation that she had when she went on the stand to defend herself. We know who her father is and what they money make, how they keep their money in their house and all this other shit. Like, basically things that are not our fucking business. And actually, basically things that we should even be talking about, considering what the fuck the reason we are even here today for. And the reason why this is even a case in court for is that Donald Trump tried to steal a fucking election, and that he called the Secretary of State in the state of Georgia in order to get him to flip that election in Georgia and to try to find him 11,780 votes so that he could therefore claim victory over Joe Biden in that election, right? That is the reason why we are here. But unfortunately, because of the lapse in judgment from said Fonnie Willis and from said Nathan Wade, because they couldn't wait to knock boots, right? Because they couldn't wait for that. We find ourselves in a situation where we're talking more about this weeks later, as opposed to, so about that case where Donald Trump was trying to steal that election, though. We should be much further along in this case than we really are, only because of that lapse of judgment between the two of those folks, right? Now, when you think about all of the cases that are going on with Donald Trump at this particular moment, where you got the hush money case that's going on in New York with prosecutor Alvin Bragg, that has been delayed. When you got the confidential documents case from Florida, where he's been able to kind of delay that case as well with the judge there. I believe her name is Eileen Cannon. Gotten them to delay that case as well. The insurrection shit with Jack Smith in that case, where now that's going before the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court is going to rule whether or not Donald Trump was acting in his capacity as president of the United States, and whether or not he now is wrapped in immunity from that case. And so now we got that case is now pushed back. By and large, what Donald Trump is trying to do is to push all of these cases beyond the election, right? Because if Donald Trump is to win this election in 2024, those two federal cases goes away. He never faces any sort of consequences for stealing those documents and for that goddamn insurrection on January 6th. Those cases go away if he becomes president again. And then you got these local cases where, these state cases in New York and in Georgia. If he's president, well, you can't prosecute a sitting president. So now we got to wait for him not to become president. Now, this is also a president or a dude who's pining to be president for life at this point, because the only way that he can avoid having any consequences meted out to him is to seek the refuge of immunity that comes with being president of the United States. That is what his game plan has been this entire fucking time. Delay, so they don't have to he doesn't face any fucking consequences whatsoever, man. Real talk. So I just want people to understand what the consequences of this is. I keep telling people, man, like, we are whistling past the graveyard on a lot of this stuff. I know a lot of people got a lot of things going on in their life. You know what I'm saying? Like, you trying to figure out how you going to pay your bills, man. Hey, man, I got to get my kids to school this week, man. I ain't thinking about that Donald Trump shit right now, man. It ain't even time to vote, man. You tripping. That's 8-9 months from now, man. You tripping. But I want you to, at least when you're listening to me, that you kind of know what's at stake when you do go into that ballot, bro. When you do go into that ballot box, when you do get your absentee ballot and you decide that you're going to sit in front of on your dining room table and you're going to Google these motherfuckers before you really decide whether or not they deserve your vote or not. So, yeah, man, got that going on. We got one last story here. And let's see. Bernie Sanders, man. So Bernie Sanders been out here, doing his thing. He trying to, advocate for the folks, man. He trying to advocate for the peoples. And Bernie Sanders wants you to be able to have a 4-day motherfucking work week, man. And I ain't mad at him. I am not mad at him. I said that was the last story. That is not the last story, but we going to talk this Bernie Sanders shit real quick. We going to talk Bernie Sanders real quick. Do I have that story? Oh, shit. I do not have that story saved. I thought I had the story saved, but essentially this is what's happening here. Bernie Sanders wants you to be able to go to work 4 days out of the week, get paid for 40 hours, but you only work 32 hours, right? So I'm going to put that up as a poll right now. Would you be cool going to work just 4 days out of the week, work your 32 hours, get paid like you get paid right now, and you get that 3-day weekend? I'm telling you right now, nigga, I am for it.
Yeah. What happened to your sheriff? There is powerful niggardry at work here.
I used to work, when I was a shutoff man, I was a utility shutoff man. I used to work 4 days a week. And it was typically 4 days, 10 hours, right? So it was the 40-hour week, but I got it in, it was 10 hours a day. But because I was so efficient at shutting niggas shit off, it's not, I'm proud of it, but I'm not, because, some people was in real bad situations. But I used to be able to, I'd be at work 7:30. Most of my work was done by 12. And I'm supposed to be on the clock for what was that? Let's see. 4. So I'm supposed to be on the clock till about 6. Hey man, I was at home playing PlayStation, getting good at Call of Duty and shit. I was still on the clock, but I was done with my work. You know what I'm saying? Because I was good at what I did. And I loved the fact that I didn't have to go to work on Fridays, man. That was I was like, oh my God, this is beautiful. I got a 3-day weekend every weekend. And so the idea of having a 3-day weekend, because I'll tell you right now, when I go back to work tomorrow, somebody gonna say, hey Spann, how was your weekend? Short. That's how it was, nigga. Short. It wasn't long enough, man. It's never long enough. Because I spent so much time at the job, right? So the idea of us being able to have a 4-day weekend, I think is dope. I said 4-day weekend, but a 3-day weekend I think is dope. And so I'm gonna make that the poll on tonight's show. Are you in favor of the 4-day 32-hour work week where you still get paid your 40 hours, but you only working the 32, man? Real talk. I said that was going to be the last story, but it's not, because I got this story, man. I don't know how the fuck I forgot about it. But, yo, in Texas, man, they done the porn people, Pornhub done decided to take their website out of availability for the whole state of goddamn Texas, man.
Niggas coming.
Not really. The niggas ain't necessarily coming if they can't get to the porn. You see what I did there? Yeah, man. You see what I did there? But Pornhub blocks all of Texas to protest the state law where they want age verification, right? So we get this story here. This comes from Ars Technica. It says that Pornhub has disabled its website in Texas following a court ruling that upheld a state law requiring age verification systems on porn websites. Visitors to Pornhub.com in Texas are now greeted with a message calling the Texas law ineffective, haphazard, and dangerous. I guess you could say Pornhub pulled out. Yeah, I'm here all week, man. No, but it says, as you may know, your elected officials in Texas are requiring us to verify your age before allowing you access to our website. Not only does this impinge on the rights of adults to access protected speech, it fails strict scrutiny by employing the least effective and yet also most restrictive means of accomplishing Texas's stated purpose of allegedly protecting minors. Pornhub has said it has made the difficult decision to completely disable access to our website in Texas. In doing so, we are complying with the law, as we always do, but hope that governments around the world will implement laws that actually protect the safety and security of users. The same message was posted on other sites owned by the same company, including RedTube, YouPorn, and browsers. Pornhub has also blocked his website in Arkansas, Mississippi, Montana, North Carolina, Utah, and Virginia in protest of similar laws. VPN services can be used to evade the blocks and to test and to test out which states have been blocked by Pornhub. So, first off, I want to say, man, I'm sorry to all of you guys who are in those Republican-led states who are blocking access to your porn. I know you want to jack off in peace, and they are not allowing you to jack off in the privacy of your own home. But this also kind of speaks to, the idea of, I'm old enough to remember, man, when Republicans were talking about, man, we want to keep the government out of our lives. We want the government out of our bedrooms. We want the government to just like, we want limited government. And here you find yourself, the government is trying to tell you who you can marry. The government is trying to tell you you can't make a decision for yourself as a woman, whether or not to have an abortion or not. The government is even telling you what you could jack off to in their state. And mostly it's Republicans telling you this. That's just the real of it. That's just the real of it. And so I like the fact, though. I do like the fact that in this article, they're like, well, you could use a VPN and get around this bullshit. And so I would assume that the sales of VPNs across Texas, Mississippi, Montana, North Carolina, Utah, and Virginia are about to go up. The cost of the VPN about to go up, baby, because they ain't not about to stop these motherfuckers from jerking off, man. Real talk. It's not about to happen. Every man has a right to motherfucking jerk off and peace at his own house, man. And the government, not from my cold, hard hand. I mean, shit. Yeah, man. But that's what it is. That's what it is, man. Hopefully they come to a resolution. They come to a resolution. God damn it, man. Damn, Spann. All right. That's our last story, man. That was our last story. But it's time for me to get on up out of here, man. I've been running my mouth for quite a bit. Well, how long we been on here, man? 2 hours and 11 minutes. God damn. All right. But of course, before we get out of here, I do have to remind you guys how to get in touch with us over here at the Mrs. Spann Official Podcast. Let your voice be heard. Go ahead and hit up that hotline at area code 313-288-0485. That's area code 313-288-0485. Leave those voicemail messages. Of course, those messages will get played here live on the show and responded to in kind. You can also leave us those emails. Those emails will get read here and replied to here live on the show as well. The email address is feedback@thespannreport.com. That's feedback@thespannreport.com. Go ahead, leave us those emails. Those emails will get read here, reply to live as well, like I said. Also, follow me on Threads and Instagram. My name on both of those platforms is Mr._Spann. So go ahead, follow me there. Chop it up with your man Spann throughout the week. Leave us a 5-star review on iTunes and or Spotify, man. Those 5-star reviews are the ones who get read out live here on the show. We really appreciate everybody who goes about the business of doing that. Doesn't cost you a dime, man. Just a couple minutes of your time to let everybody know why you're rocking with us over here at the Mrs. Spann Official Podcast and the Spann Report Podcast Network in its entirety. Also, if you listen to us on Spotify, man, vote in those polls. Leave us comments, man. We read those here on the show as well. On YouTube, leave us a thumbs up on YouTube. And if you got comments on here, leave us a comment on our videos on YouTube, man. We really appreciate everybody who does that. And we like the feedback because, again, it doesn't have to be a monologue. And also, the people who don't fuck with you will let you know. Trust me, I know, right? The people who don't fuck with you will let you know. So it's always good to hear from people who do enjoy what it is we do here, right? Also, go to our website, www.thespannreport.com. You can go there, cop some merch, man. Get yourself a nice little fly t-shirt like I got on here right now. Get yourself a coffee mug or a hoodie or whatever, man. We got some nice stuff over there. Also, man, you could donate to the show. Right? You can donate to the show as often as you like, as much as you like. And of course, we really do appreciate every dime over here at the Mrs. Spann Official Podcast and the Spann Report Podcast Network in its entirety, man. Real talk. But I am about to get on up out of here. It has been good talking to y'all. I will talk to you guys again soon. But until next time, fam, peace.